Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It's so good to be back. It is so good to see everybody. How are you doing today? Boy, do we have a good chat in front of us today. There was a ton of news in the past week in the video game industry, so it's not going to be one of those chats where we're kind of scraping, trying to find things to talk about. We have a ton, right? We have a ton of stuff we can discuss, a ton of stuff we can talk about. So what are our big topics this week? Obviously, we can talk about whatever you want to, but there's going to be a couple things that obviously really stand out. First of all, we haven't had a chat since the Hogwarts Legacy State of Play. That blew up, did some great numbers on social media. Game looks like way more impressive and ambitious even than I was expecting. So we can talk about that, how we think it's going to sell, what we thought of the presentation of the game in general. This week, we just found out that Sony has bought Haven Studios, who, of course, is led by Jade Raymond. She's known primarily for her work over at Ubisoft, including the Assassin's Creed franchise and a whole bunch of other stuff. They are now a first-party PlayStation Studios team. Now, this is going to be their first game. Whatever they're making now, we know it is a live service AAA game, but this will be their first game as a studio, right? Pretty much all the talent at this studio has extensive backgrounds. They all come from, a lot of them from Ubisoft, but all over the industry. But, this is going to be their first game together. So Sony clearly must have seen something they like because they went out and purchased them. So we can talk about that, what it means for Sony, what it means for Haven. Microsoft just came out and dropped a ton of stats at GDC about Game Pass. I'll break that down and give you exactly what all they mentioned there. And also we have found out that CD Projekt Red announced a brand new Witcher game is coming. Looks like that's going to be their next game. I think we all assumed there was going to be another Witcher game after the ginormous success of Witcher 3, as well as the huge success of the show on Netflix. So it only made sense, but now we know it's officially coming. So we can talk about what it means for CD Projekt Red, what it means for the Witcher franchise in general, and so much more. If this is your first time as ever part of my live chat, basically the way this works, it's a stream, it's a show, it's 100% driven by you, your comments, your questions. You just drop them down into chat, and we get to as many questions as we possibly can. I'm going to stream for about an hour and a half today. It should be a pretty beefy stream. I'm not in a rush today, so I should be able to get to a ton of questions today. There's going to be two ways to do that. First of all, of course, there's the free method. You just type a question, whatever you want, drops into chat, and I get to as many free questions as I possibly can. If you want to guarantee that I get to your question, the way to do that is going to be the super chat option. Type a donation, whatever you want, pops into chat, and I get to super chats immediately. However, as always, don't feel pressured, don't feel obligated to donate in chat. It's just a way to help support me and the channel. All right, we're going to start dropping into your questions in like 2 seconds, so start filling that chat up. And before we do that, I'm going to really quick give you that rundown on some of the stats that we got out of Microsoft at GDC. This became a hot topic. My tweet on it kind of blew up. These are the stats that Microsoft announced, and there's actually even more, but I just didn't have time to fill it into one tweet, but these were some of the ones that stood out to me. So this is in the first 90-day window, okay? That was kind of the metric they were using. They were measuring this by the first 90 days for most of these stats. So subscribers, once they join Game Pass, play 40% more games. So I think that makes sense, and it's also a great metric. Once you join Game Pass, you obviously now have this huge new library of games that you didn't have access to before. So it does make sense that before you subscribe to Game Pass and after, you're playing more games. Makes sense. They also pointed out that a lot of people are trying genres that they traditionally would not play. This is actually pretty easy for Microsoft to measure. Some people might be like, where are they getting this data? How? Well, it's Xbox Live users. They can look back at every game you've played on Xbox or your achievements and stuff. So they can look at a user, look at what they were playing before, look at what they're playing after, and they're seeing that a lot of Game Pass subscribers are trying genres they never or traditionally would play before or very little. And that again makes sense because it's a lot less risk, right? When you're going out to buy a brand new game, if it's 60, 70, 80, whatever dollars, you're going to be a lot more picky about what you're buying because it's a lot more expensive. But whenever you just have that instant access, it makes sense that people are trying a lot of stuff they wouldn't normally play. I think a lot of people that have Game Pass can attest to that. We've played series and games that we never played before. So that's looking good. Games on average that join like in the back catalog, right? So let's say this isn't a day one game, a game that's been out for a few months or a few years or whatever. Once they join Game Pass, on average, they see an 8.3 times lift in players. That's a big boost, right? And I think we can all see that. If you look at what happened with Avengers when it joined Game Pass, huge lift. When you look at what happened with Guardians of the Galaxy just recently, huge lift, right? We see this a lot. Games that are not even on the Xbox most played charts, they join Game Pass, also you see them shoot up. So on average, it's 8.3 times. They said they saw as low as 1.6 times, which is still a nice boost, right? You're still getting more players, but they said, that's like on the really low end, like worst case scenario, it's a 1.6 times lift. And some outliers were as high as 28 times more players. So pretty crazy there. Day one launches. So these are games that are launching day one as soon as they hit the service, right? For large publishers, these are your Square Enixes, your Activisions, your, whatever. I'm not saying specifically those, but your large publishers. On average, they're seeing a 3.5 times increase in players at launch than like similar games released by that company. So clearly, even if you're a big publisher, you're getting, it's a big boost, 3.5 times lift in players. And then for indies, it's even more pronounced, which again isn't surprising to me. Indies are seeing on average 15 times the amount of players at launch than if they weren't before. Again, this makes sense to me. A lot of people, it's unfortunate, but a lot of people don't traditionally like to buy indie games. Don't get me wrong, there's a ton of people that do. But there's also a large amount of players that just want the AAA games, right? If I'm going to spend my money, I want a big, giant game that's, got high production values and lots of gameplay. But indies particularly, huge boost in players at launch. Makes sense to me. Way less risk. Good for indies. And then the last stat I'm going to point out here are two more. Subscribers on average spend 50% more. They broke this down. Some it's an increase in games they're buying. Some it's an increase in microtransactions that they're spending, right? If you're getting access to a game and you didn't have to buy the game, you might be more willing to spend microtransactions on it, right? Because you're like, hey, I'm playing this game on Game Pass. I didn't have to shell out $60 for it. I'm going to buy some DLC for the game since I didn't have to actually buy the game itself. So, you see that a lot with like free-to-play games. So subscribers spend 50% more, and then indies see triple-digit revenue growth. And they broke this down. It's pretty interesting because you see how these payments from Microsoft really help out, right? So an example that they were giving, the actual game and add-on revenue from joining Game Pass. So this is people outright buying the game or buying microtransactions or DLC or whatever for the indie game. That got a 110% boost. But also, this is something to keep in mind. Devs aren't putting and publishers aren't putting their games on Game Pass for free, right? Microsoft's making deals with them. They're also seeing 190% growth thanks to Game Pass participation payments and bonuses, right? Because Microsoft pays out. It sounds like it's a little different on contract from things we've heard. Some people, it's like a bulk payout early on. Some people, it's bonuses, right? Milestones you hit, how much people are playing your game, how active it is in the service. Microsoft will pay you additional amounts of money. So pretty interesting there. And indies are seeing triple-digit revenue growth. So those are your Game Pass stats. I thought those were pretty cool to see broken out like that. And yeah, we're good to get rocking on your questions, everybody. So that's the stuff off the top. Start filling that chat up, and I'm going to get to as many questions as I possibly can today. All right, couple super chats to kick us off. Plastic Hearts Podcast here with a 10. Thank you so much, Plastic Hearts. Really appreciate that, man. You're awesome, always in chat. Benji Boy, I'm about to get a root canal at the Dento. Love your tweet about building your own Witcher. Do you think CD Projekt Red goes that direction with the next Witcher? They definitely aren't saying it's Witcher 4. Well, first of all, Plastic Hearts, man, I hope the root canal goes smooth. I know how awful those can be. I've had all kinds of crazy stuff done to my mouth. As you can see, I'm missing a tooth. Right there, I got a whole tooth missing. So yeah, I know how much the dentist can suck, man. So I hope that goes smooth. And in terms of Witcher, right, I saw Shinobi tweeting about this, and this was something I've been thinking for a while. I think, and I don't know this isn't inside information, right? But looking at CD Projekt Red, looking at RPGs, I think that they're probably going to go build your own Witcher for the next Witcher game. Now, it could be it's Ciri. I'm seeing a lot of people say it's Ciri. I kind of doubt that. I will not be surprised at all if Ciri plays a prominent role in the story, if she's a big NPC character. That wouldn't surprise me at all. You're going to see some returning characters. I can't see them releasing a Witcher game where you know 0 people in the game, right? They know how beloved a lot of characters from those games are. So I think you will see some, right? Some cameos or some prominent NPCs. But my guess, looking at what they did with Cyberpunk, looking at what most big RPGs are like, and this is the truth, right? Most RPG games, you build your own character, whether that's Mass Effect, whether that's Elden Ring, which just came out, whether that's a ton, right? A ton of games. Elder Scrolls, Fallout, I could go down the list. Most Western RPGs, I should say, they tend to lean Dragon Age towards you build your own character. I'm suspecting that's what they're going to do with Witcher since they finished up Geralt's story in Witcher 3. So yeah, I'm leaning that direction. I think that's what they'll do. I'll be happy either way. I love the Witcher franchise. I used to have a Geralt avatar whenever I posted on forums. Like, that's what my avatar was Geralt. But I suspect they are going to go build your own Witcher. I think so. Thank you so much, Plastic Hearts. 2 super chat here from Split and 89. Best mod in the business. Thank you so much, buddy. Safe to say the industry has a worker shortage. It does seem to be that AAA development in general seems to be having some issues, right? There was already a lot of debate before the pandemic about the sustainability of AAA development, right? Tons of burnout in the industry with AAA development, tons of turnover at big studios with AAA development, just all kinds of stuff, right? We all love these big, giant AAA games. It's been known for a while. It's very hard to get these games out of the door. Then the pandemic only escalated that, right? That's why we're seeing so many games that are coming out more buggy than you anticipate, right? A lot of games. It hasn't been just 1 or 2. Really, since the pandemic started, a lot of games, particularly open world games, have been a lot buggier than you would come to expect. So clearly it's having an effect on that. And also, yeah, I would say worker shortage does seem to be a thing. You see a ton of studios hiring. You see a ton of studios trying to fill up these staffs. I don't work directly in the industry. I'm not a recruiter, so I can't tell you exactly how extensive it is. But I would say split end, it does appear that there is a bit of that. Part of it that you see pointed out a lot from people like Jason Schreier and other devs that have left the industry is that in general, if you're a very good programmer, you can tend to earn a lot of money outside of game development. A lot of these big tech companies will pay you a lot more money to not make games, but to come work for them in development. So that is one thing too. Maybe salaries need to increase a little bit more to attract more talent, and help with people feeling burnout and things like that. So there's a whole host of things, right? Pandemic, obviously, like we mentioned, has affected the way people want to commute and if they want to work, in these places or remote. So again, I can't give you all the details since I don't work there, but split end, I would say it's safe to say that, yeah, there is a bit of a shortage in workers right now. It does appear that way. Like almost every AAA studio is hiring right now. Like almost all of them. It's pretty crazy. And not just like for 1 or 2 positions. If you go look at almost any AAA studio, they've got like a whole host of openings. Benji here with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Benji. Hi, Benji. Regarding the Haven acquisition, I've seen some negative chatter on Jade Raymond. If we remove the toxic crowd is a legitimate question. Here's the thing about Jade Raymond. She is clearly very, very talented. Clearly. If you look at the work she did at Ubisoft, it's outstanding. I do think it's safe to say that there is some questions, not in terms of if Jade's talented. She clearly is very talented. Not in terms of like if she has a bad work environment. I'm not saying anything like that. But she has, almost similarly to Amy Hennig in this situation, it's been a while since Jade Raymond's had like a big successful venture, right? Her work at Ubisoft was amazing, but outside of that, she was at Motive for a little while. I'm pretty sure that's what EA studio she was at. It was at Motive, I think. And while she was there, they didn't really get anything big out the door. Then, of course, as we know, she went over to Stadia. Stadia didn't really work out either, right? She left Stadia, and now she has a new studio here at Haven. To be honest with you, I think this is actually probably going to fit Jade's talents more. If you look at how she led at Ubisoft, right, it was really building up that studio, making something really ambitious with Assassin's Creed and all of that work she did there. I think maybe doing something like Stadia just wasn't really maybe the fit for her. So I'm optimistic about it. I know Jade has a ton of talent. Again, just like Amy, Amy had all that success with Uncharted, wrote multiple games for Uncharted, and then has struggled a bit since then, getting a big, new, ambitious project out the door. So I would say I can understand why some people would be a little bit like, man, I hope this works out, just since Jade it's been a bit since she's had that big success. I wouldn't panic over it or anything, though. Like, here's the thing. Jade founded this studio, and a ton of talent wouldn't have followed her unless they believe in her, right? Like, it was her that founded it with a few other people, but a lot of really talented devs have followed her there. So I would say that's an encouraging sign. Those people wouldn't be going there if they thought that this was going to be a failure or something like that. So that's a good sign. I would say so. But I get why some people would be a little trepidatious just looking back at EA Motive and Stadia. I get it. I get why there's some discourse around that. All right, I think super chats are cleared for now. Thank you so much for those super chats, everybody. Let's get rocking into your free questions. Joe Secchi. Benji, hope you're doing great. I am. I'm doing really good. The Square Enix March Battle Royale was won by Triangle Strategy, with Strangers of Paradise selling mediocre and Chocobo GP and Babylon's Fall being disasters. Surprise thoughts. Yeah, Joseki, here's the thing. Clearly, Square Enix is going to need to be doing some retooling on their strategy of output moving forward. I was just having this discussion with somebody. They have a lot of bombs in a row. A lot. That is painful for any publisher. We already know that they said that Guardians of the Galaxy underperformed what they expected, which is unfortunate because that game is excellent. I am very happy to see that game saw clearly big success on Game Pass. I mean, dude, it did great. That game got up into the top 5 most played games on Game Pass in the US. You saw it rise up the most played overall charts outside of Game Pass in the US. It shot up those charts. Very happy to see a lot of people got to play that game because it really flew under the radar last year. But in terms of sales, Square Enix outright said it missed their expectations. So that you have as a miss late last year. Then just this month alone, you had Strangers of Paradise, which the UK numbers don't look great. Japan numbers ain't good. And then you had Babylon's Fall, which was literally a disaster. And then Chocobo GP as well, not successful. That ain't good. You can't do that. Here's what I'll say, Joseki. Very good news they delayed Forspoken. Thank God they delayed that game. That was absolutely the smart choice. They can't have repeated, bombs or commercial underperformances just over and over and over again in a row. So I'm very happy to see the Forspoken delay. It's already looking like that game's polishing up well. We talked about it before. What they showed in December of last year looked very rough. And then the latest footage that we've seen just this past month looks already as a solid improvement over that. And now this game's not coming out until October, y'all. They still have April, May, June, July, August, September. They still have another 6 to 7 months of polish on that game. That's a lot. So very, very smart of Square Enix leadership to delay that game. Very smart. And I'll say it's great for Triangle Strategy. That game's clearly doing well. It's on its way to over 1 million units sold. As a Switch exclusive and as a strategy RPG, great result. So very good there for Triangle Strategy, but they need to definitely be looking hard at their release strategies moving forward. I think, and I don't know that this is for sure the right answer, but my theory here, I think they need to pull back on some of these projects. Release fewer games, and don't release, when I say fewer, I'm not saying release 1 or 2 games a year, because you still need to have an output. But I think they maybe are juggling too many projects right now and not enough budget is being paid to each one. Like, if you look at Strangers of Paradise, I don't know, but I don't think that budget was very high just looking at the game. You look at Babylon's Fall, I don't think that budget was very high looking at that game, right? Like, very rough looking games. Maybe they need to pull back a little bit and fund a little bit more these games. Maybe that's one path they can take. Elias Stapleton, Nixus, Valkyrie, Haven, Bluepoint, Firesprite, Fabric, Insomniac, Housemarque, Bungie. PlayStation has acquired 9 studios very quickly. If we put all of those together, it's like they acquired a publisher. There's no signal they are slowing down. Z-Huge did a tweet thread very interesting about this. PlayStation acquisitions at the end said, who's next? Yeah, they're going to acquire more. My question is, Benji, who's next? I think those $1.2 billion to retain talent at Bungie is a signal that Sony is looking for a lot of studios. Talent is required a lot right now. In 2021 only, they made 6 acquisitions. We are in March, and they already did 2. Yeah, everyone's going to acquire more. Microsoft's going to acquire more too, right? I've already told you guys that. Here's the thing. I don't know that Microsoft's going to try to acquire anyone until the Activision Blizzard deal's done. That's way too important for them to get finalized. Way too important. I think Microsoft ain't going to risk anything on that having issues. So I don't suspect you're going to see Microsoft acquire anyone until that deal finalizes. But once they do, they're going to buy more studios too. And Sony as well. They're not done by any means. Now, who's next? I've theorized for a while Ember Lab. They seem like a perfect pickup for Sony. Here's one thing that's a very key difference between Sony's acquisitions and Microsoft's. Microsoft's going for very big established players that we all know who they are and have released a bunch of games for the most part. They've had a few smaller acquisitions, right, that don't have a ton of pedigree. When you look at someone like Compulsion, they've released some games, but they haven't released like tons and tons of games. They weren't some giant studio. But a lot of their acquisitions have been these very big established players. While Sony, Bungie was a big one, but if you look at a lot of them, like you've stated here, the Housemarques, they've had a lot of games, but they're very small, very small. You look at Nixus is basically primarily a porting studio, right? You look at Haven, they're a brand new studio that's released 0 games. You look at Bluepoint, pretty much just remakes, right? Firesprite, big staff, but not a lot of AAA content. Sony is going more, it appears, for budget-conscious purchases that are still smart. Whereas Microsoft is, I think, making smart plays too, but they have so much money, they can go for the really big players. I suspect Sony's acquisitions moving forward, you might see another Bungie-sized thing, but I think mostly it's going to be more targeted acquisitions for people like Ember Lab. Makes a ton of sense. I'll be shocked if Ember Lab doesn't get acquired by Sony. I think the only way Ember Lab doesn't become a PlayStation Studios team is if Ember Lab doesn't want to sell, right? They don't have to sell if they don't want to. If they believe that their future is going to look better as a independent studio that can get contract work or whatever from all across the industry, then, more power to them. But I suspect if you're Sony, that makes it a lot of sense. You can get them pretty cheap. I mean, Haven did not cost much, y'all. There's some talent there. Here's the thing. They have 60 devs right now. They're a team of 60, and they've released 0 games. Sony didn't spend much. I'm telling you that right now. It was not very much money to get Haven. So they're very smart in how they're doing this. Ember Lab also is not going to be expensive. We already know Kena was a big success for that studio, and so I expect Ember Lab next. Maybe that studio that's making that first-person shooter game that I can never remember the name of, that has like Call of Duty devs there. Maybe that studio next. In terms of big players like that we know of, that becomes harder because that is shrinking. And we know that some of these big independent developers that are still out there, independently owned, are actually currently working with Microsoft. We know Avalanche is currently making Contraband for Xbox, so I can't see Sony getting them because they're making it Xbox exclusive. We know IO Interactive is currently making some sort of Dragon RPG for Xbox, so I can't really see them getting acquired by Sony. So maybe Kojima Productions. Maybe Kojima would make a lot of sense, but my thing is I don't know that Kojima wants to sell. We've talked about this before. A lot of people ask me, is Kojima going to get bought by Microsoft or Sony? It's possible, but I just don't know that Kojima actually wants to sell. After all that drama that happened at Konami, I don't know that he might want to remain independent. You know what I mean? So I don't know. But if I said a big established player, maybe Kojima. All right, I think we had a super chat drop. Let me hit that super chat. We did. We have multiple super chats. Holy cow. Vince the Magician, I think, might have accidentally dropped 2 super chats. I apologize. I'm sorry if that was an accident, man, but thank you so much. We have a 10 here from Vince and then another 10 from Vince. If you accidentally donated twice, I apologize, man. But thank you so much. It's very kind of you. But with one question here with 2 super chats, there's a lot of gaming news outlets and breakers. Do you think there's room for more people who want to spread news? I run a weekly gaming newsletter called Weekly Recon and would love your input. Vince, absolutely. And here's why I can tell you there's absolutely more room, because I am living proof of it, right? So here's the thing. I don't work for anybody. No one, right? I work for a retailer. I don't work for anyone in the video game industry. I don't work for any publications. I'm not working at IGN or GameSpot or I'm not working for Sony or Microsoft or Capcom or anyone. And I'm about to hit 40,000 followers on Twitter, which blows my mind. But I did it. I created my account in, I think 2018. So it hasn't even been 4 years yet. Here's the thing, Vince. Is there room? Absolutely. Is it a challenge? Also, absolutely, right? Here's the only advice I can give to you, Vince. And I'm not some big, super famous person, right? But I think from having zero background, like zero, getting to 40,000 on Twitter, I'm proud of it. So I can give you a little advice, right? Keep in mind, this isn't advice in terms of like I said, I haven't been able to land an industry job yet, right? I've had some offers and I've had some weird situations. We've talked about this before. I've been very close to working for multiple companies and, tons, including a platform holder, which I will not name. So I've been close, but I can't give you advice in terms of here's how to get a job, because I haven't gotten one yet. But in terms of getting known, right? Getting your newsletter out there, Weekly Recon. The biggest advice I can give you, just from what has worked for me, and this goes for anyone out there that wants to break out or have any kind of following, there's a couple tenets that I stick to, and here's what they are. First of all, I always am thinking through pretty extensively around what I'm going to say, right? That might sound very simple. Oh, duh, of course you're going to think about what you're going to say. But here's the truth. I see a lot of people just constantly tweeting random stuff, right? And here's the thing. Is my Twitter my personal profile? Yeah, right? It's my Twitter. But a lot of people don't want to just constantly read your random takes. That's just the truth. A lot of people want to be informed, right? They want to be well informed. They want to have good, solid news. So I would say that. I would say focus most on being, if this is what you want to do, being very informative. People like information. They like to hear news. They like to hear facts. So think through what you're going to say, right? Don't just instantly tweet out hot takes. Really think about what you're going to post. So I'd say that first. Second of all, I would say always, try to be true to yourself, right? Don't try to change yourself based off what other people are going to think, because here's the thing that's only going to stress you out. So be true to yourself, and don't fanboy. I'm going to be honest. Don't do it. Some people can get clicks through being a fanboy. Do not be a fanboy. Be informative. And yeah, that's kind of the main things. Here's one other thing that's very important. I will say, what makes your voice unique, right? What is something that makes people want to find you, right? The reason people have followed me, the reason people retweet my stuff, the reason people do anything with my content is because I'm one of the few, not the only, but I'm one of the few people that's out there talking about the video game industry in terms of sales, in terms of business, in terms of data points. There's not a lot of us out there, right? Of course, you have the Z Huge, and I know it's not Z Huge. Don't correct me, I say it because I think it's funny. You have Z Huge. He's the biggest, right? Out of all of us sales folks, he's the one that's over 100,000 that's focused on that. You've got me out there. You've got Christopher Dring. You've got Matt Piscatella. But in terms of your people with big followings or decently sized followings that's talking about sales, I mean, that's most of us. There's a ton of people that I love that I follow on Twitter. They're doing great sales work as well. But I just mean there's not a ton of us, right? So that's what makes people come out and find me. So for your stuff, Vince, your weekly recon, what is it that makes you very unique in this space, right? I'm not sure exactly what you cover in gaming, but what makes your voice different than the other people talking about what you're also trying to talk about? So that's some advice, Vince. I know it's a long answer, but a lot of people ask me about this stuff because I think they see that I am somebody with no background in this that kind of has gotten a following. Those are the only things I can recommend, Vince. Biglow25 with a 2 super chat. Square Enix and missed expectations. Name a more perfect duo. Biglow, it's the absolute truth. I hate to say it. I'm always rooting for everything to succeed. You guys know that. I literally, if it was up to me, I would want essentially every single game to be a giant sales success. The only times I would root against that is if someone's doing something crazy predatory towards consumers, super anti-consumer, something like that. I'm not going to necessarily root for, but anything that's like a game, right? It's a game hitting the market. I want them all to sell well because that's good for everybody. It's good for the publishers. It's good for the devs, right? I want everyone to be successful. But it's just the truth. Man, Square Enix is on a rough roll. Outside of Final Fantasy VII Remake, really they've had nothing hit except for their Switch exclusive stuff like the HD 2D games since Remake, right? I mean, really, almost every game they've released since Final Fantasy VII Remake has just been missing. And we all know they have an extensive history of missing expectations before that as well. Mainline Final Fantasy, like the absolute mainline games, still seem to be doing well. Final Fantasy 15 was a big seller. Final Fantasy VII Remake, great seller. You look at Kingdom Hearts 3, did very well. You look at Dragon Quest, still doing well. So their biggest core franchises that, like I was talking about earlier, that they're still putting budgets in, they're still putting a big focus on, those continue out of the Japanese side to perform well. But a lot of these smaller projects and also a lot of the games coming from their Western studios are struggling. Yeah, Square Enix is really going to have to think through some of this stuff. It's going to be a challenge. Super chat here from Benji with a 5. Benji, is Sony in a low at the moment? PS5 sales / shortages, GT7 controversy, mixed state of play, Horizon 2 short hype. Is this concerning for 2022? No, to be honest, and I hate to say this, I'm much more concerned for Xbox this year. Much more concerned. And what I mean by that, in terms of console sales, Xbox is actually performing very well. Very well. Actually, we're going to have to see what happens, but it's looking like Xbox is going to also outsell PlayStation again in the US in March. If that happens, Microsoft will have outsold Sony in the US for 4 of the last 5 months, right? November, December, and then February and March. The only month PlayStation 5 will have outsold Xbox in the last 5 months will have been January. So that's looking good, and we know that Xbox outsold PlayStation in Europe in February, and it's looking like Xbox might in March as well. So this isn't like a doom and gloom on Xbox, but it's really looking like a soft year for Xbox. Right now, the only things we know that are coming for them for the entire year are Redfall and Starfield. And Redfall doesn't have a date, really no footage. And Starfield, I'm very hoping it makes its November release, and I think it will, but there is a chance that could get delayed. The reality is it's a giant open world game, and we've seen extensive delays for these kind of games. So I'm still I would say I'm optimistic it's still going to hit in November, but if that gets delayed, that's really bad, right? A whole year with just Redfall would be tough. Forza's probably going to slot in this year, but that's not confirmed yet, so we need to hold our horses before declaring Forza Motorsports this year. Not officially announced yet. Probably will be. But no, if you're talking about like as a whole, am I more like, is Sony at a low? I don't know, man. Microsoft, I think they need to talk soon. I think Microsoft really needs to show some stuff soon. And again, this isn't anti-Xbox. I literally love Xbox. I just think if you're asking me who's getting better headlines and messaging at the moment, I would actually say Sony more than Microsoft. There's not a lot on the docket right now for Microsoft. So, but is Sony having issues? Yeah, Sony's got their own issues. There's no doubt about it, right? The shortages are brutal. I mean, that's bad. I mean, there's no other way to frame it. The shortages for PS5 right now are brutal. I mean, if you look at some of the sales it's doing in some European countries like Spain, it is shocking how bad it is. So shortages are the biggest issue facing Sony right now. It's going to be hard for them to correct. I hope they can. That is scary, though. There's no way to paint it otherwise. The shortages are scary for PlayStation 5. But the state of play, I think that's not that big a deal because at least they're showing something, whereas Microsoft's not showing anything right now. Like, they need to start talking soon. I suspect you're going to see something from Xbox somewhat soon. Horizon 2 was still a great game, even if the hype didn't last. I mean, it was still a great game. Gran Turismo 7's controversy is not good. The game itself seems to be great, but it does have issues as well. So Sony's got some problems they need to iron out, but I don't think they're like doom and gloom. I don't think anybody's doom and gloom. You know, I think they all have their own issues. I think Sony's got some stuff to iron out, and so does Xbox. I'll tell you what, if anyone has no doom and gloom, like not doom and gloom, but zero negatives on the table right now, it's Nintendo. I mean, my goodness, what a generation Nintendo's had. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. I guess the most thing you could point out for Nintendo is they just need to get better with their online services. But if you look at sales and you look at games, it's like ridiculous. So, but I'm optimistic about both Sony and Microsoft. They're going to have a good gen. They both have some issues to work through. ST right now with a $4.99 super chat. Thank you so much, ST. Great chat so far today, everyone. Thank you so much. Is PlayStation risking their prestige status by heavily investing into games as a service, which are harder kinds of games to hit big and review highly? Ooh, great question, ST. Here's the thing. I would say Sony would be making a mistake if they pivoted to just games as a service, right? If Sony just full on, they were like, we're making very few single player games now. We're basically just going to do games as a service. I would absolutely say so, ST. That would not be the stance that they should take, because part of the reason they've built up such a beloved fan base that they have is those big single player games. We know that, right? Whether it's God of War, Horizon, as we mentioned, The Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima. I mean, I could go down the list, right? Those big single player games is part of what has given them their identity really in the last decade. So if they got away from that as a whole, that would be a huge strategic error. It really would. That would be a very big strategic error. Here's the other thing though. There's just no doubt about it that Sony's missing and leaving a ton of revenue on the table, not having any big multiplayer games. That has been, if you're going to criticize Sony for anything in the last, PS4 generation, I think it'd be that. They really dropped the ball with multiplayer. They had almost nothing, right? They had a few games last gen. There was a few with multiplayer. You had Uncharted 4, which had a multiplayer component, but that never hit out huge. They just really didn't have much multiplayer last gen. And as we know, many of the biggest games in the industry are multiplayer projects. So they need some of those. If you want to drive a ton of revenue and a ton of profit, you need some. You can't just have zero multiplayer. So the thing is, ST, I think these acquisitions that they're doing are actually pretty smart because it's not requiring their current teams that specialize in single player games to now pivot to games as a service. They've got Bungie now, which can help them with those big multiplayer projects. You've got Haven, which we know is making a big multiplayer project. They've got that project lined up with those, that new studio that I can literally never remember the name of with the Call of Duty devs. That's a multiplayer project. I think, here's the thing. They should not be forcing Insomniac, forcing Santa Monica, forcing Naughty Dog to create multiplayer games as a service games. If those studios want to do some of that, they can. But ST, I wouldn't be too worried about it because it seems that a lot of the current acquisitions are targeting that. They're trying to build up something that they don't currently have instead of trying to force their teams specifically to become service games. So I wouldn't worry about it too much right now. Now, if all of a sudden you see Naughty Dog's next big game is a big multiplayer thing with little single player content, if all of a sudden the new Santa Monica IP is a big multiplayer thing with not much single player, that's when you should start to get worried, right? If we saw something like that, I would say, yeah, you should worry about it a little bit. But right now, I think a lot of that stuff is coming from these new studios that they're partnering with instead of their established teams. So don't worry about it yet, ST. Let's see. All right, I think Super Chats are cleared. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for those super chats, everybody. Let's get to more free questions. At the beginning of the chat, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be streaming for like an hour and a half. I'm going to hit plenty of these questions. But wow, I don't know. But I still got a lot of time, so don't worry. I'm still going to hit a lot of your questions, everybody. Jason Task 98G. Take a look at this. Is it not curious that every single acquisition from Sony, when they talk what they are working, they say new IP? Every single studio that PS owns, when they reveal what they're working on, say a new IP. Or simply they can't reveal anything, but they're all very clear new IP, which is the only one that didn't say that. Bluepoint, new content. If they're working in Bloodborne, how do you think the internet will react? And what if they're not collaborating with From? I think if that happens, Bloodborne will trend every single day. Jason, Bloodborne has got to be coming, right? We've talked about this many times. If Sony doesn't do anything with Bloodborne, it's a giant missed opportunity. Bloodborne is not a game that set the sales charts on fire. It was no Elden Ring. In fact, it was no Dark Souls 3 in terms of sales, but it still sold well. But here's the thing. Not every project, when you're a platform holder specifically, needs to be the biggest, giantest seller of all time. Sometimes you need those projects that really hype up your hardcore fan base, right? And Bloodborne is absolutely one of those games. Whether it's a Bloodborne remake, a Bloodborne sequel. My theory why this has never happened is simply because From doesn't want to do it. Now, maybe From wants to at some point, but I think From Software has been so busy. Look at how many games they've released in the last couple years. They had Sekiro, Dark Souls 3, and Elden Ring, all huge projects within a fairly short window, right? We're not talking in the last year, but in the last, like, what is that, 5 or 6 years? They've had 3 big AAA games. From has been very busy. So I suspect that Sony and, just has been like, what are we going to do with it if From's not going to be involved at all? We don't really have the team to build Bloodborne 2. So I think that's part of why it's taken so long. But Jason, something Bloodborne's got to be coming. Whether it's a remake, whether it's a sequel, no idea. Is that going to be Bluepoint? It makes a lot of sense for it to be Bluepoint simply because they did the Demon's Souls remake. But we'll see, Jason. I don't think it's any sort of lock, but I do think you'll get something Bloodborne out of Sony probably this generation. I don't know if that's going to be a sequel. It might just be a remake. I will be surprised if we end the PS5 generation with 0 new Bloodborne content. I'd be surprised. Joseki, last year 11 million VR headsets were sold and almost 80% were Oculus Quest 2. With this level of dominance, how do you see PSVR 2 selling? The entry price is huge. Here's the thing, Joseki, price is going to be key. I was talking about this on this chat really before anyone was talking about it. I was telling you guys that Quest 2 was performing phenomenal for a VR headset. I mean, by VR headset standards, like a lot of games media has missed this. A lot of games media has missed this. You've always seen this question, when's VR going to become mainstream? Dude, it kind of already just happened with Quest 2. I mean, 11 million sales and 80% were Quest. That's telling you millions of Quest 2 sales last year. So it's already kind of happening, y'all. Quest 2 kind of did it. Now, are we talking that Quest 2 is going to sell 100 million units? I don't know about all that. But, I mean, VR ain't that niche anymore, thanks to Quest 2. It absolutely was before Quest 2. But Quest 2 is really changing the game. Big time. So how is PSVR 2 going to perform? There are a couple disadvantages, but also a couple advantages for PSVR 2. First, let's talk about the disadvantages. Disadvantage for PSVR 2 is that it's not a standalone thing, right? As we know, the beautiful thing about a Quest 2 is you can own nothing and you can go out and buy it and now you're in VR and it's very solid VR. You don't need a PC, you don't need a console, you literally just buy this thing and you're now in VR. So that is a huge selling point. It's also wireless, right? You have no cable if you're using the Quest. As long as it's not tethered to a PC, you're completely wireless. That's also a huge advantage for Quest 2. And the final big advantage for Quest is its pricing, right? That thing comes in at $299 for the cheapest one, right? There's a $399 as well, but getting in the door for $300 as a whole package for VR, I mean, that's pretty friggin' sweet. So there's a lot of advantages for Quest 2. Now, the advantage for PSVR 2, right? If we're going to pivot, what's something that's nice about PSVR 2? The reality is it's going to be able to offer a far superior, in terms of fidelity, experience than what Quest 2 can. Quest is using a mobile chipset. It's not that powerful. It's a big jump over the Quest 1. And whenever you're playing Quest 2, some of these games are so good at giving you a sense of presence that you can kind of overlook some of that stuff. But it's going to be a night and day difference in terms of how much better games are going to look on PSVR 2. So for those truly incredibly immersive experiences, PSVR 2 is going to be able to offer you something that Quest 2 just simply cannot, right? So that's one advantage for PSVR 2. But the disadvantage is, as we know, not wireless, and you have to have a PS5, which is facing shortages. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, right? How do I expect it to sell? It all comes down to price. If they can get a PSVR 2 on shelves for $300 to $350, I think they could have a lot of success with PSVR 2. Now, to be clear, I do not expect this to sell as much as Quest 2. Not at all. I think the other advantages for Quest 2 are just way too strong over what PSVR 2 can do in terms of wireless, price point, and standalone. But can PSVR 2 still have a solid fan base following and something worth pursuing for Sony? It can, but it can't be priced crazy. If you see PSVR 2 hit shelves at $500, it's DOA. It's DOA. Launch is going to be really probably cool as the enthusiasts get in the door, and they are going to completely collapse after that. Eventually, when they bring that price down, you'll see another boost of sales, I'm sure, but it'll be DOA for months if it's on the shelves at $500. At $400, it's a bit of a middle of the road. I think they could have some success with it, but it won't be a smashing, unbelievable breakout success. $300 is that key point. $300. If somehow PSVR 2 is $300, I'd be pretty bullish on it. But if it's $400 or $500, that's going to be a lot tougher sell. Dude, you guys are asking such good questions today that it's slowing down my responses because I have to give you all long answers. I hope I'm not boring you guys. I'm having fun with this chat, but you guys are asking really good questions today. Like, my goodness. It's not like stuff I can just fly through in 30 seconds. Like, I got to give you a good detailed answer. All right. 2 more super chats. Holy cow. Highlander with a 10. What's up, Highlander? So good to see you, man. Thanks for being so supportive always. You're awesome. Benji, hope you're having a great day. Very good. Very, very good. With the Game Pass released this week, will this take wind out of the sails of those saying that Game Pass hurts gaming? Take time for yourself. Highlander, I think so, and I've thought this for a while. I haven't ever really been of the perspective that Game Pass is bad for gaming. I've always pretty much been on the side I think it's a positive. I've felt, and who knows, maybe in the long run we're all wrong, but I've felt that the argument that Game Pass is bad for devs or bad for gaming has always been mostly fear-mongering with little data to back it up. What evidence is there that Game Pass has hurt devs or publishers? I haven't seen any. I look at data all day, every day. It's literally what I do. I'm not exaggerating when I say from the moment I wake up, I'm not kidding, the first thing I do, get on my phone, which is bad, but this is the truth. I get on my phone and I start looking for topics to talk about. To literally right before I go to bed. From the moment I wake up to the time I go to bed, I'm constantly looking for data and topics to talk about with you guys on Twitter. It's like all I do. Besides working and family, but I juggle a lot. I haven't seen any data point that points to it. Where's the data point? If there's extensive data out there to show how this is hurting devs and hurting the industry, I'd love to see it because there's none. There's none. There's no data point that points to it. There just isn't. So maybe we're all wrong. Maybe at some point suddenly when Game Pass, if it hits 100 million subs, suddenly no one will buy games and we're looking at the doom and gloom of the world, but there's no data to reinforce that at the moment. Zero. None. There's no data for it. So I've always felt that that was mostly fear-mongering. Some people will mostly, they'll try and ignore some of these stats and they'll try and say it's Microsoft spinning and all kinds of that stuff. And don't get me wrong, I guarantee you Microsoft tried to put this data in the best light that they can, right? Which any business would do. Nintendo wants their data to look as best as possible. Sony wants their data to look as best as possible. Heck, frickin' Walmart wants their data to look the best as possible. Any company, right? So I'm sure Microsoft is putting this in the best light they possibly can. But that's the job and role of any company. There's no data out there to support. I'm telling you right now, there's no data out there to support that Game Pass is bad for the industry. Maybe I'm wrong and something changes down the line. But as of now, it ain't hurting the industry. So hopefully it helps the conversation, but we'll have to see. But right now, there's no data for it, Highlander, none. RRD with a 2 super chat. Would From make an exclusive makes no sense now. RRD, I agree with you. I completely agree. I've talked about this before. I think it might have been like 2 chats ago. I can't see From making an exclusive unless someone pays them an astronomical amount of money. Now, Bloodborne could be an exception because here's my theory. If Bloodborne 2 happens, I do not believe From will be the ones primarily developing the game. I think if Bloodborne 2 happens, it's going to be somebody from Sony with From providing some oversight, right? Providing some guidance, here's like some story ideas, maybe building the world of what Bloodborne 2 is. But I do not believe, RRD, you will ever see Bloodborne 2 fully developed by From Software. I just cannot see that happening because, as you mentioned, it just doesn't make sense considering how big their games sell multi-platform. There's just no reason to. We're in terms of console, we're the bulk of console sales for Elden Ring on PlayStation. Yes, but to be clear, this game sold millions on Xbox with an S. Not a million. It has sold millions on Xbox. It's hard for me to believe they're just going to throw millions of units away for their next game. And if you look at all their games now, they're all multi-platform. Sekiro, multi-platform. Dark Souls 3, multi-platform. Elden Ring, multi-platform. I cannot see From making an exclusive unless someone pays them an absolute mountain of cash. Or, like I said, maybe they assist with Bloodborne, but that ain't their main project. They're making a multi-platform game. They make a deal with Sony. Sony pays them some money to provide oversight for a Bloodborne, but it's mostly Sony developing it. That I could see. But can I see Bloodborne 2 built from the ground up only from Software? No. I think that's very unlikely. Very unlikely. All right. Super chats are cleared again. Thank you so much, y'all. This has been crazy. You guys rock. I love you guys. All right. Where we at? Danger Man. What's up, Danger Man? Great to see you, man. On the next Witcher, I am somewhat disappointed by the teaser snowy image because I think a Middle Eastern-inspired Witcher would have been sick unless they're aiming for a bait and switch. I can totally understand that, Danger Man, because I'm sure a lot of people want to see what's the world of The Witcher outside of the areas that we always see, right? We pretty much, whether you're the books or the games or the show, you know, it has that Poland-style forests and snowy mountains and everything, which makes sense because it's based off Polish lore. So it makes sense that it always has that aesthetic because that's what the source material is. But I can also see why some people would be like, hey, I want to see something totally different in the Witcher universe, right? What does the other areas outside of here look like? So I can get that, Danger Man, but I think it somewhat makes sense for a couple reasons why they're probably going to still make it look like the traditional Witcher aesthetic. Couple reasons. First of all, the response to Cyberpunk 2077 probably has them a little scared in that they want to play it slightly safe. And whenever I say slightly safe, I don't think that Witcher, whatever this game is just going to be a carbon copy of Witcher 3. But I think they want to be like, okay, we had some issues with Cyberpunk. Let's get back to what we know, what we're very good at, and let's get a game out the door that we know is in our wheelhouse. It's something we're very, 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 very good at. So I think making it similar to Witcher 3 makes a lot of sense, right? Instead of going into some totally crazy different direction and risking what happened with Cyberpunk and the next Witcher game back to back, if that somehow missed fans' expectations, that would be a disaster. So on one hand, it makes sense to do it like that. And then on the other hand, like I said, for story, I'm suspecting you're going to see some returning Witcher characters. Again, I'm doubtful you're going to be playing as Ciri, but I'm probably like 99% confident Ciri will at least be in this game. Wouldn't even surprise me if you see Geralt make a cameo, right? I don't think he's going to be the main dude or anything, but do you do a quest with Geralt? I could totally see something like that. So I think they'll want some returning characters, and they also want to make sure this game nails it. So, but I get that viewpoint, Danger Man. Eddie Brock. Benji boy, what is up, Eddie? Don't you think it's a bit excessive that PlayStation is developing not 1 or 2, but 10 live service games? It is a lot. Isn't that a bit too much? What will happen if 80% of these service titles fail? Ooh, that would be not good. It is a lot. They have a lot coming. Some could argue potentially it's an overcorrection from last gen, because they had so few multiplayer games and now they have so many multiplayer games. Maybe it's a bit of course overcorrection. I don't know. It is a lot though. But here's the thing. Live service games take a long time to release. So I suspect some of these are pretty far out. Like I suspect whatever Haven's making, I don't think you'll see that for another at least 3 years. Like I think it's pretty far away. We know Bungie's making a new IP, but how far away is that? Probably another 2 years or so at least, right? Conservative, let's say 2 years away. Could even be more, but it has been in development for a long time. So I wouldn't be shocked if the next Bungie IP is like 2 years off, but still. So these are probably going to be pretty spread out. I would be surprised if you have 10 live service games in the next 3 years. So they'll probably be pretty spread out, which helps. But it is a lot. It's a lot. Potentially risky. There's no way all 10 will be hugely successful. Like, that's just not going to happen. But I suspect some also will. Probably whatever comes from Bungie is a guaranteed success. So we'll have to see. It is a lot, though, Eddie. It's a lot. There's no doubt it's a lot. Miles Morales. Hi there, Benji. According to VGC, the LEGO company is in talks with 2K to develop LEGO sports titles. Very smart. Ending their 20-plus year exclusivity with Telltale. The rumor says Telltale WB might lose the LEGO license due to low sales of previous LEGO titles. Ooh, I missed this part. And poor working conditions. Do you think LEGO will end their partnership with Telltale Games, or do you think they will continue it alongside 2K? Here's the thing. They're LEGO sports games, right? LEGO sports titles. I think that could actually be really fun and very accessible to younger kids. So I actually think that could be very smart. Here's the thing. The issue with LEGO game sales slowing, I think, is because they've done so many in the same franchises. They probably need to try something brand new. How many LEGO Star Wars games have we had? And there's another one coming out. How many LEGO Harry Potter games were there, right? Wasn't there multiple ones? How many LEGO DC games were there? A lot. How many LEGO Marvel games were there? A lot. Like, it's the same licenses over and over. If they want LEGO to continue to be healthy, they need to be tackling new IPs. It needs to be, I'm not saying like something we've never heard of, but not one of those, right? They need to have a LEGO, something we haven't had a LEGO of. So sports could be one way to make that work, having some sports games or diving. There's LEGO sets for just about every IP. They're going to have to strike something else. I don't think 40 more Star Wars games or 40 more LEGO Marvel games are going to sell the way that the first few did. It just doesn't make sense, right? There's diminishing returns. So that would be my answer, Miles. They need to be doing something different. So sports makes sense, but I'd also like to see them do something else. Casual Gamer. Hi, do you think it's possible that if WB Games titles sell greatly and review well, that Discovery will double down even more on games and keep them and consider the valuable assets? Here's the thing. Hogwarts Legacy is tracking like a behemoth. Wow, the tracking on this game. Woo! We need to see if Hogwarts Legacy can actually deliver on what those trailers promised. But that state of play kind of blew me away on how good it looked. I don't think it's a crazy thing to say that if Hogwarts Legacy is good, this thing's going to sell 15 to 20 million units, almost assured. And who knows, could even be higher than that. But it's hard for me to see this selling less than 15 to 20 million units if it's as good as it looks, because the tracking is unbelievable. And it appears it nailed what fans want. So that's going to be a big wake-up call for WB or Discovery if that happens. Again, hard to predict sales before final quality, but the tracking is enormous on Hogwarts So that's looking really good. Got Gotham Knights, unfortunately, we just haven't seen enough of, so we need to see how that is. We need to see how Suicide Squad is, which was just delayed. It's possible, casual. It's possible. The whole WB Discovery thing is just hard to know what's going to happen. It's hard to know. But if Hogwarts sells like I think it's going to, and if Gotham Knights is also very good and Suicide Squad's good, I don't think they'll sell. You know, that's just my guess, but I don't think so. If somehow those games come out and underperform, you might see them want to be aggressive in selling. But if they sell how I think they might, they probably won't. Yeah. Hammersley Ford. Benji Boy, I know the Witcher IP is a juggernaut, but seems like it won't be on Steam. It will be on Steam. I think the game will do less than Witcher 3 on PC. If that's the case, do you agree? It'll be on Steam. So they have a deal with Epic, but they specifically made a tweet that said there's no plans to have this be exclusive to a storefront. And some people are like, yeah, but they didn't say Steam, so it could be on GOG and Epic Game Store. Here's the thing, CD Projekt Red's not dumb, and they know that they need a giant smashing success after Cyberpunk. I think there's almost, and I could be wrong, put it this way, I'm going to tell you right now, if I'm wrong on this and it skips Steam, CD Projekt Red might need to look at new management. And I hate to say that, but that would be a disastrous call. Yes, if Witcher 3 isn't on, or whatever the Witcher next game is, if it's not on Steam, will it sell less? Yes, it will sell less. It will. So unless Epic is going to pay them an absolute unbelievable fortune of cash, which still isn't worth it in my opinion, because you're hurting a brand that CD Projekt Red needs to not be hurting their brands right now. They need to be doing every single thing possible to make their brands as beloved as possible. So if they skip Steam, it will be a shocking error. Shocking error. And I don't think they will. They already made that tweet. There's no plans to make this a store exclusive right now. I think they fully mean Steam, Epic Game Store. It will be on Epic Game Store, but Steam, Epic Game Store, and GOG. There's no way they're that foolish. There's no way. There's just no way. There's no way they're that foolish. Yes, they have a deal on Unreal Engine. They're working together with Epic, but there's tons of games on Unreal Engine that are on Steam. Tons of them. So there's no way. There's no way they're that foolish. It makes sense if you're a smaller game, right? If you can get a lot of money from Epic to make your game Epic Store exclusive and you're not a big dev and you really need that kind of cash influx, I can understand that stance. If you're CD Projekt and you're The Witcher, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind if you take that deal. You lost it. Yoda Soda. Sup, Benji? Do you think if major publishers and developers wither its first, second, third, see huge success in multiplayer titles over single-player titles, that single-player titles will be few and far between? Or do you think we should rest easy and developers and publishers continue to make single-player titles? They will not be lower regardless of multiplayer. You need both. You need a balance of both. Any publisher that tells you it's one or the other, no. You need a both. You need single-player content and you need multiplayer content. I think the people that are doing it the best in the industry have a nice balance of both, right? If you look at the ones that are doing very well, you look at Take-Two. Take-Two has been doing great in the last recent years. They got a nice mix. They got multiplayer stuff out there. They got single-player stuff out there. You look at somebody like Capcom, they got a nice mix. They got a lot of single-player stuff. They got a lot of multiplayer stuff like Monster Hunter. You know, you look at the best publishers in the business, nice balance. Going all in on one or the other is not the right stance, right? You need a bit of both. So Yoda, I wouldn't worry about it except for companies that just make bad decisions, but most aren't going to. I think it's been clear now that you need both. Batman Forever. Benji, nowadays we are getting licensed games left and right. By the way, Star Wars, Marvel, DC. Do you think we'll reach a point where the market is saturated and people are fatigued of licensed games? No, as long as they're good. Brands have become incredibly important in media in general. And they were always important, but they've become particularly important, I would say, in the last 10 to 15 years. Big brands. So if the quality dips, yes, the faith in consumers will dip. If the quality stays high, like we've seen with some of these, like Spider-Man, Guardians was good quality. Hogwarts Legacy looks great. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, absolutely fantastic. Quality stays high, demand will stay high, quality dips, demand will dip, etc. So I don't think licensed games are going anywhere anytime soon. I don't think so. Now, if you have a game like Avengers, it can hurt the next game like we saw with Guardians. So, like I said, the quality bar has to stay high up. That's got to stay high. Venom Harness. Hola, amigos. Hola, Venom. Great to see you, man. Benji, with the acquisition arm race, don't you think it will lead to struggle in leadership and management? Ooh, interesting question. God, you guys ask good questions. That's why I love doing this. In both Xbox and PlayStation. We've already heard what's happening with Perfect Dark. Absolutely fantastic question, Venom. What a great question. It is going to become difficult, not impossible, but it's going to become difficult to manage this many people and this many studios. Yes, I loved a quote that Phil Spencer gave. I think he was talking to Axios. I think that's who he was talking to. Phil just gave an interview recently, and he admitted, he said, like, taking on Activision Blizzard is going to be something that, like, you know, it's going to be way beyond what he's ever done. And he gave a great quote. I don't remember the exact quote, but he was essentially being pretty humble about it. He was like, yeah, it's going to be a challenge. Like, trying to manage all the Xbox game studios you already have, plus all these Bethesda studios. Now you've also got Activision joining, and now you have PlayStation. Same thing, right? They have all these new studios. You know, saying it won't be a challenge for anyone would just be a lie. You could be the most talented person in the world, the best person in the world at these positions. And when you have that many people across the world, right? That's another thing that's very important to keep in mind with managing game development when you're somebody like high up in Sony or someone high up in Xbox with management. Not only are you dealing with thousands and thousands and thousands of people, they're spread out all over the planet. You got people in Europe. You got people in North America. You got people in Asia. You got people all over the freaking globe you're managing. They're all going to be very different. So, Venom, there is zero debate. It's going to be a challenge, right? The only thing you can hope for is that Microsoft and Sony, particularly since they're the ones really growing, that they put great leadership. They need to be, I mean, leadership's always important. It's going to be very important moving forward, like extremely important. So yes, that's going to be a big challenge, Venom, but they need to heavily prioritize great management. Great. That would be hard for anyone. Ghost Tunnels. Why do you think PlayStation and Xbox are buying studios left and right instead of creating their own studios or expand their teams? Well, I actually have a very easy answer for this, Ghost. Like, wouldn't it be better to have 10 big studios than 10 medium ones? Well, here's the thing, Ghost. So in terms of growing their studios, that's exactly what they're doing. All the headlines right now are about studio acquisitions. If you look across the board, Guerrilla, Santa Monica, Naughty Dog. Then on Microsoft's side, you look at Playground, you look at Compulsion, you look at Obsidian, you go down the list. All their studios are growing. Every single one of them just about have been staffing up, and they've been staffing up for years. So, Ghost, I know it's an easy thing to miss. All those studios are growing. Like I said, essentially all. Maybe there's one or two that aren't, but 90% of these studios within Sony and Microsoft, they're all staffing up. They're all growing. So not only is it new acquisitions, they're also making their studios bigger. In fact, for a lot of them, they've been getting brand new buildings. Guerrilla just got a brand new building a couple of years ago. We know Ninja Theory just got a new building. Compulsion, I think, just got a new building. They're all getting bigger. So that's already happening, that part. Now, in terms of why are they buying studios? Because if you don't, someone else will. That's what happens in an acquisition arms race. I mean, I hate to say it, but if you ain't buying, someone else is buying. That's just the reality of it. So if you want to lock down partners and you want to make sure you have that team and that staff to work with for the foreseeable future, right now you got to acquire. Because here's the thing. If Microsoft don't buy somebody, Sony might buy somebody. And if Sony don't buy somebody, Tencent might buy somebody. Everyone's forgetting Tencent. They're already investing and buying studios all over the place, and they also make enormous money. The biggest gaming company in the world is Tencent. So Tencent might, and if Tencent doesn't, Amazon might, and if Amazon doesn't, EA might. This thing works like dominoes, right? Once it starts, you gotta buy. You gotta consolidate because somebody else might. And the other thing is that this industry is shifting towards subscriptions. It's shifting towards services. It's shifting towards games living for a very long time. Games don't exist for a year anymore, right? Unless they're like a bomb. But most games, they're getting content for years. You're driving subscriptions. You're driving people to your platform for years and years and years. So you want to make sure that these studios are long-time partners. So there's a whole bunch going into it, but it makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. Jason Benjamin. Greetings, Benji. Sorry if this got asked before because I missed streams. Totally fine. Not everyone's going to be able to make every stream, Jason. It's all good. But I'm wondering, with Xbox being a juggernaut with 30 plus studios, how would Nintendo and PlayStation compete against Xbox output in 2024 and beyond? Well, I'll have an answer for you here, Jason. Meaning when Xbox finally get the hang of handling 3 publishers, Xbox Game Studios, Bethesda, Blizzard, how will PlayStation and Nintendo compete? Because Microsoft hasn't proven it yet. And again, I love Xbox. I love Microsoft. And this is not a diss. Does Xbox and Microsoft make excellent games, especially recently? Yes. Last year, they had a great year. You look at Flight Sim. You look at Psychonauts. You look at Forza. You look at Halo, right? They have some great games. So this isn't an Xbox has no games. Have Xbox proven yet that they are going to put way more games out of a super high quality bar than either Nintendo or PlayStation? It has not happened. Now, do I think that is a likely scenario? That Xbox is eventually going to be at a point where they're releasing a ton of games. Jason, I actually do think so. I think that we will hit a critical mass point. Microsoft's got tons of games coming out, tons and tons and tons, and there's stuff all over the place. I do think that's going to happen, Jason. But I haven't seen anything yet that says to me that Xbox just is going to have way more and better content than Nintendo or than Sony. You know, I think it might happen, but that has not been proven yet. And Sony hasn't been lax in what they're doing. They've bought, like we just said, 9 studios. What is it? In the last 2 years, they've had 9 studio acquisitions. They're buying a lot of people. And you have Nintendo, which is just a freak of nature that even with a lower studio count can just put out tons of freaking games that sell 30 million units. So, Jason, a lot of people always want it to be one or the other. They want only Xbox is going to do good and Sony and Nintendo are going to do bad, or only Nintendo's going to do good, or only Sony's going to do good. I think we're past that. I think we're at the point now where all 3 can be great players in the industry and all 3 have a lot of success. I'm not worried about that stuff. That kind of stuff doesn't really enter even into my thought process. Like, I don't see it. I think everybody's going to have a lot of stuff. Now, there might only be one that can be the industry leader, but I just think we're past the days of what happened with the PS2 generation, where you just have the PlayStation 2 sell a bajillion units, and then, Xbox and GameCube be tiny sales. I think we're way past those days, way past those days. Everybody's going to sell a lot. Even last gen, as much as Xbox One struggled, it still sold 50 million units. I mean, even at Xbox at their worst, they still sold 50 million units. That's way above the lowest selling consoles of previous generations, right? I think we're just past those days that only one person dominates the industry. Let's see. I think we had a super chat just drop. Let me hit that super chat. We did. Hip Hopkins with 5. What is up, Hip Hopkins? Thank you so much. Is there a reason the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters aren't on Switch and console? This is a great question. Seems like a quick win when they could use one. Genuinely have no idea on this one, Hip Hopkins. I'm sorry that I can't give you a better answer. No clue what's going on with the Pixel remaster stuff. Seems like easy, quick cash. I suspect it will happen. But Hip Hopkins, I'm sorry. Thank you for the super chat. I can't give you a great answer other than, as we've talked about, Square Enix has been making some interesting decisions lately. I don't know. I truly don't know, Hip Hopkins. I agree with you. It seems like quick and easy money because I can't imagine that would be super expensive to port to consoles. It doesn't seem like an expensive project. Only thing I can think, Hip Hopkins, is it's coming. But I have no idea. Oh, Traveler's Tales. FYI, it's Traveler's Tales and not Telltale. I know. I always get that mixed up when I see the TT. In my brain, I knew what it was, but dude, y'all, I do that all the time. Happens to me all the time. Yeah, Traveler's Tales, my bad. I see that all the time when I'm reading stuff, and I'll see the TT, and in my head, I'll just say Telltale, even though I know it's not. I do it all the time. I apologize. All right, we're going to go for like 15 or 20 more minutes, and I'm out. DB will rise. Benji, when and which game do you think will mark Sony's true breakout moment? I'm talking about gigantic launches with Elden Ring, Cyberpunk 2077, Animal Crossing, Red Dead 2. I mean, probably never. I mean, the games you're talking about, the main reason they're so big is because they're multi-platform. The exception being Animal Crossing. But like, Elden Ring would not have sold what it sold unless it was on every platform. Cyberpunk would have not sold what it sold unless it was on every platform. Red Dead would have not sold what it sold unless it was on every platform. So like, I mean, getting a game that hits those levels that's an exclusive is, I mean, you're asking for an insane ask, right? Not impossible, but like, when do I think Sony's going to have a game that sells like what Elden Ring did? 12 million units in 3 weeks? Maybe never. Like maybe never. It's the biggest third-party Japanese game of all time. Fastest selling third-party Japanese game ever made was Elden Ring. Cyberpunk 2077, fastest selling RPG of all time at launch. So it's like probably not going to ever happen, you know? Maybe. Here's the thing. If they get one game like that, if they can have one game hit that level, it will be an incredible accomplishment. So I don't know that they'll ever have a game hit that big that quick. They'll have some huge games. You know, you look at Horizon, sold over 20 million units. You look at, you know, The Last of Us Part 1, over 20 million lifetime. You look at God of War, over 20 million. So they can have some huge games. But to live up to something like Elden Ring or Cyberpunk or Red Dead, that is almost impossible to do unless you're fully multi-platform. And the ones that do it, like Animal Crossing, that is an extreme outlier. Like, even by Nintendo standards, Animal Crossing is a bit of an outlier. So it's going to be very hard. I'm not going to say they can never do it, like it's a physical impossibility, but the odds are heavily stacked against that happening. Heavily, when you're on one platform. Let's see. I think we had a super chat. Yeah, another one from Highlander. Thank you so much, Highlander. With a 5. Just remember, no matter how life gets you down, remember you're a hero to your daughter and her mother. Highlander, what a freaking nice comment, dude. Thank you, Highlander. That's so pure. That's so awesome. Thank you so much, man. You know, I'm public about my struggles with depression. I will say that it's been a lot better the last year to 2 years. I have seen some huge improvements. I mean, that's really what drove me to Twitter. Like, sounds weird because a lot of times social media is bad for your health, but the whole reason I joined Twitter was because I was absolutely out of my mind depressed, like out of my mind. And I knew I was completely directionless in life, and I knew that I was like just struggling, you know. I'm one of these people that, I don't want to go super personal here, but in my mind, like I always want to accomplish something, right? Like I don't want to live my life, you know, be born and die and never do anything. You know what I mean? I'm sure a lot of people feel that. There's a quote that I love. I love this quote. I can't remember what it's from off the top of my head. But the line goes, most men lead lives of quiet desperation. What a powerful quote that is, right? Powerful quote. And of course that applies to anybody, right? It says most men, but that's women, that's anyone. Most men lead lives of quiet desperation. I think that's so true, right? So many people in life are looking for a purpose. They're looking for something to accomplish. They're looking for, and so many of us for so long in our lives, I feel like, are just like, what do I do? Like what's my purpose? What am I going to do in life? And that was something I was struggling with hard. You know, I had just hit, when I made my Twitter account, I think I had just hit 30. Or I was slightly under. I was like 29 or 30, I think, whenever I made my Twitter account. I think I was 30. And I was really reeling with that. Something I've been dealing with ever since my like mid-20s. It was something I was starting to feel just very strongly. because I'm one of those people, like, dude, I was working like, retail jobs. I'm still working a retail job, and I felt like I was doing nothing in life, and it was just, I was so depressed. I didn't know what to do. And I was like, you know what? I love video games. I talk about them all the time on forums. I've been talking about video game sales since 2007 or 2006 online on forums. And I was like, dude, I'm just going to go on Twitter and I'm going to start talking about this stuff. I'm going to give myself a drive, a purpose, something to look forward to. And it changed my life, right? You guys changed my life. I say that all the time, but it's true. You guys literally changed my life. And it really has helped with the depression. So thank you, Highlander. I will say, if you are somebody that's struggling with depression, I can't tell you it's the answer, but one thing that's helped me is give me something to work towards. It doesn't have to be being some sort of social media person, right? It could be learning the piano. It could be learning guitar. It could be whatever you want it to be. But if you feel lost, right, you feel like, man, what am I doing? Try and give yourself a goal to work towards. I think that makes a big difference. So Highlander, thank you so much. I appreciate those kind words. I love my daughter so much. I really appreciate, everything that my wife's done, and she's an awesome person too. So Highlander, thank you for the nice comments. And I'm doing better, I'd say. Thank you so much, man. Really appreciate that. All right, Timmer with a 2 super chat. Keep being awesome. You keep being awesome too, Timmer. You freaking rock, man. Thanks for being in like every chat ever, and thank you for always for the support. Jeremy G with a 2 super chat. Dude, what's with all the nice comments? Thank you so much. Late to the party. Keep rocking, Benji. Thank you so much, Jeremy. You keep rocking too. Thank you for the super chat, the kind words. All right, I think we're close to winding down. I'm going to still go for 10 minutes. 10 minutes, guys, and I'm out. So I'm going to blast through as many questions as I can in the last 10 minutes. I appreciate it. All right. J-Cat saying, what's up? What's up, J-Cat? Great to see you here, J-Cat. Hope you're doing well. You're awesome. Ryan Thompson. Hello, Benji. What kind of game do you think Haven Studios is working on that made Sony want to acquire them? Ryan, there's only a few things we know, so it's hard to know for sure. Couple things, okay? So we know it's a live service game of some sort with multiplayer. So we know that. We know from what they've said, they're going to try and push the PlayStation 5 really hard, right? Like visually. They've said that like from the beginning. They're trying to get the most cutting edge, like amazing visuals. So we know it's going to probably look really, really impressive visually because that's like one of their mandates from what they've talked about. And the other thing we know is it sounds like it's going to have some sort of user-generated content of some kind. We don't really know what that means. Jade Raymond, when she did an interview about whatever this project is, she had mentioned things like, I think she even mentioned like TikTok and things like that. And not in terms of like, I don't think they're trying to think, oh, we're going to make some sort of social media game. But she was talking about how like people just create these TikToks and they can go viral and like they can just make these things. So it sounds like, Ryan, those are a few things we know. We know it's going to have some sort of user-generated, created thing. We don't know what that is. Are you making levels? Are you making characters? Like, who knows? Some sort of user-created content. We know it's going to have insane visuals from what they're saying, and we know it's a live service game of some sort. Outside of that, it's hard to know. Really hard to know, Ryan. Is it going to be just another shooter? I'm doubtful. I think it's going to be some sort of third-person adventure type thing, giving their background, giving Jade Raymond's background with like Assassin's Creed and stuff like that. And a lot of the devs that are working there have that sort of background. So that's the only thing I can add, but this is just me thinking probably some sort of third-person multiplayer adventure type thing. I think, but we don't know. Typical timing. Benji, how do you feel about the way Microsoft are handling Xbox Cloud Gaming and granting access via an Ultimate Game Pass subscription? They seem to be quietly adding all titles that Game Pass license agreements to the service and even supporting the devs/pubs by assisting with touch overlays, etc. What are their next steps if they want to grow that area of the business? How do you see that offering looking in the future? Typical timing. Microsoft, I believe, is the best positioned in the industry with cloud. I believe they absolutely are. If you look at all of their experience in cloud in general with things like Azure. So much of Microsoft's stuff now in terms of services is just done in the cloud. So as a whole, the company Microsoft's well positioned there. And then I think Microsoft's taken the best stance on this, in that they always have led that cloud is an additional thing, right? They didn't come out with the Stadia thing where it was just cloud's the only future. That's how you access our stuff. No, they've been very smart. Cloud is additional. We still sell a console. We still sell discs. We still sell downloads. You don't have to stream, but it's a nice bonus. So that's very smart strategy. They haven't put all their eggs in one basket. It's something they're building up towards. Company's very well positioned. And as you mentioned, they have the power of Game Pass behind the cloud. So you have this huge library of games you can access with cloud. So typical, I think it's something that will continue to grow for them and be very big in the next 10 to 15 years. I've said it before, I don't know that you'll see a scenario where most people are playing via cloud or via streaming over a dedicated, installed game. I don't know that you see that anytime soon, right? That might be many, many years off. But do I think you'll see a scenario where cloud's like a pretty noticeable part of the market, people streaming games? Yeah, I think it will, so they are the best position for it. They just need to continue what they're doing. Keep growing Game Pass, keep improving the technology, and out of anyone in the industry, Microsoft has the most upside with cloud, yes. Yep, absolutely. I think we had a super chat here towards the end of the chat. Benji here with a 5. Yay, fun. I love MMA questions. Don't worry, I'm going to still hit a couple more game questions before we go, but I love MMA. It's like my other passion besides video games and music and a million other things. Benji with a 5. MMA question. Should Dana White step in and ban trash talk involving family/religion? The Khabib brawl, the Masvidal assault, it's going too far. Here's the thing. Boy, is this a weird and complicated topic. So the reality is, and the thing that people always say, and it is true, this is the fight game. The fight game always, since the day it was made, has had trash talk. I mean, you're going in there and you're fighting someone, whether it's MMA, whether it's boxing. Boxing has a long history of crazy trash talk. What's the WWE built off? Yes, I know that it's it's entertainment, it's sports entertainment. It's not a real fight, but it's simulating a fight. And what's it built off of? Trash talk. So trash talk and people being mean to each other, that is literally combat sports. If you don't like trash talk at all, you probably should not engage in combat sports, right? It's just, that's the reality of it. However, it might be getting a little too out there with some of this stuff. A little bit. Here's what I would say. Benji, I would say that Dana should probably take the stance that at an official press conference, if you are at an official UFC funded event, that might be smart. That might be listen, these are the rules. You can trash each other as much as you want. You can say you suck. You can say you have no skills. You can say your camp sucks. You can say all the trash talk you want. But family and religion, if you are at a UFC event, is prohibited. You did not say it. Can Dana White go out there and police everyone in their daily lives and say you can never say anything mean about another person randomly each day of your life? He cannot do that. So whatever happens outside of a UFC event, it's probably fair game. You can't police somebody in their daily life. But Benji probably would be smart. It'd probably be smart after some of the stuff we're seeing and it keep elevating. Listen, if you're at a UFC press conference, those two things are off the limits. You don't say anything about religion and you don't say anything about anyone's family. If you do, you're fine. Trash talk all you want outside of that. Say the guy sucks, you're going to knock him out, all that kind of stuff. But family and religion, if you're at a UFC event, you don't say it or you get fined. Probably smart because it is starting to get crazy. We're seeing it spill out into actual brawls and stuff outside of the cage. That ain't smart. All right, couple more questions and I'm out. Woo! Gary Sanchez, do you think Radical Entertainment has a chance of being revived after the Activision Blizzard acquisition? Who knows, Gary? You're going to see some stuff get revived. I don't have any idea what stuff. You'll see some stuff come back, though, some dormant IP. You've seen Phil even mention that they hope to revisit some stuff. I don't know. Gary, tough to say. Some stuff's definitely coming back. I don't know what all, though, or what all's going to happen. Samir, hi from India. What is up, India? What is up? Y'all are always so awesome. Lots of love from India and lots of love to India. You guys are always so nice. Love the passion I see from India. Yeah, this is a funny comment from Chris. I noticed this. Did you see that Sarah Bond acted like Sony had already announced Spartacus? I have two minds, because this was something that was kind of funny. It did stand out to me even when I was watching it. I was like, did Sarah just say what I think she said? Okay, there's two ways you can interpret this, Chris. One is that she was just referring to what they already have with PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now. That is one way you can look at it, and that very well could be what she meant, right? She's just saying, look at Sony. They've got a subscription service with PlayStation Now and PlayStation Plus where you get free games. Like, well, free, as we all know. You're paying for the service, but you get the games. Maybe she was referring to that, but it also, the way Sarah phrased it, did sound like she was referring to like a new subscription service. I don't know the answer here, Chris. I don't want to put words in Sarah's mouth. Who knows? She very well could have been referring to PS Now and PS Plus, but it did come across, at least when you're watching it, it did feel like she was talking about like Spartacus, but we don't know. We don't know, but I did notice that too, Chris. Yeah, I did notice that. Ken B. Benji, do you think the controversy around J.K. Rowling will have any negative effect on Hogwarts Legacy sales? I wonder if it's a vocal minority, a la the Pokemon Sword and Shield complaints. Ken B., this is a super complicated topic. I usually don't delve into this stuff. Hogwarts is super complicated because even I feel super complicated about it. Here's the thing. I think Hogwarts Legacy and Harry Potter as a brand in general is one of those things that's so... people are going to have such mixed emotions on it. I really think it's one of those things that's going to come down to like an individual choice. And I'm not going to blame people either way they fall on it. Here's what I'll say. I can only speak to personally. I'm still going to get Hogwarts Legacy. I'm still going to cover Hogwarts Legacy. I'm still very excited for this game, and I still really like the Harry Potter brand. Now, I also, at the same time, this is only personal. I'm not going to ever preach to you guys about anything, because I'm not in any position to preach to you about anything about how to live your life. I disagree with the vast majority of what J.K. Rowling's saying on a personal level. However, I also know that Harry Potter is so much more in terms of the people working on Harry Potter than just J.K. Hundreds of devs are making Hogwarts Legacy, and I assure you hundreds of them, or a lot of them, disagree with J.K. Lots of people make those movies that have very different viewpoints about J.K. than what she has. I also understand that when you are, interacting with anything Harry Potter, money's also going to go back to J.K. because she is the creator. So I get all the complicated emotions. I totally understand people that say they'll never do anything Harry Potter again. I also understand people that, like me, still are going to get it. I actually totally understand both viewpoints. I'm personally going to still get it. Hundreds of people are making this game that have nothing to do with her. It looks awesome. I'm going to still support those people. But I totally get the opposite stance too. Do I think it will have a major impact on sales? No, I don't. At all. Very low. Will there be some people that will skip it? Yes, just like there's going to be some people that skip the movies. There will be some. But do I think it's like one of these things, like suddenly the blowback will be so immense this game can't even sell? No. The reality is a lot of people outside of social media don't even know this is a thing. Like if I ask my parents about the Harry Potter controversy, I promise you they don't know what I'm talking about. They'd be like, is the new Harry Potter movie suck? Like if I asked them, they'd be like, is that what it means? The new Harry Potter movie's not good? Like a lot of people don't even know this stuff. So I don't think it'll have a massive impact, but there will be some. Yeah, there will be some that boycott it for sure. And just like anything else in life, it's totally understandable if some people do. Couple more and I'm out. JCat, Stranger of Paradise underperformed bad in Japan. It did. It was rough. Do you have any idea how it performed worldwide? Not looking good, JCat. I don't have a freaking ton of data on this, but you look at UK's charts, didn't look good on UK unless digital came through clutch, which doesn't seem likely in this case. You look at some of the stuff I've seen in the US, not looking great. JCat, I suspect this game underperformed in general worldwide. Yeah, I don't want to say it's a fact until we have all the data, but it ain't looking good, JCat. Not looking good. Johnny G, would you like to see a Geralt cameo in the next Witcher game? Yes, I would like to see it. Could be part of main quest or side quest. By the way, love your content, and I hope your channels continue to grow big time. Johnny, incredibly nice. My Twitter grows crazy. I'm so appreciative of it. My YouTube's a very slow grower, but that's fine. I've come to accept that. I know I'll never be a big YouTuber, and that's fine. We can have these conversations every week, and I love doing them. Like, this thing can never grow bigger than it is. I'm still going to be here every week as long as I can. The Twitter's on its own. That thing just is crazy. But yeah, I'd like to see Geralt. Yeah, I'd like to see him. I don't want him to be the focus of the game because he had a nice send-off in Witcher 3, but it would be very fun to see him, yeah, show up, like you said, as part of the main quest for a little bit or in a cool side quest. Yeah, I want to see him, but I don't want him to be, like, the biggest focus of the game. You know what I mean? Nice cameo makes perfect sense. Pat Fury, what's up, champ? First, I thought The Rock was delivering the game of news, but it's you, Benji. Thank you. I've been working out hard, man. I've put on some definite size. Now, I'm no bodybuilder by any means, but I've been working hard the last 3 months, man. Hard. I have added. So when I started on January 1st, I was down to like 145 to like 147. And right now I'm up to about 160. So in about 3 months, I've put on a little over 10 pounds. Now, as I've said before, keep in mind, that's not all going to be muscle, right? I take creatine. Creatine holds water in the muscle. Some of that is going to be water weight. So, that'll be some. I'm basically just as lean as I've ever been, so I haven't really added any fat. But if I had to guess, it's probably like half and half, right? I've probably put on, like, in 3 months, 5 to 6 pounds of muscle and 5 to 6 pounds of water, somewhere around that. Which is nice progress, right? Nice progress. So I'm making good gains. I appreciate it, Pat. The goal this year is to get the biggest and strongest I've ever been. Again, not a bodybuilder, but some size. Yeah, I'm working towards it, buddy. Thanks, Pat. Biglow 25, Benji, seems to me it looks like Microsoft increased Series X production. I agree. I'm expecting a huge month of March for our Xbox. We need to see the final data, but it's looking like a big Xbox month in March. Looking good. I agree. Should be very, very big for Xbox in March sales. Particularly because Series X. Sounds pretty 7. Benji, when do you suspect we'll see the Assassin's Creed Bossum game? And since it's reportedly going to be stealth focused, is there any chance it'll be something more along the lines of Splinter Cell? Silence, I think this is going to play more like an old school Assassin's Creed game. I think that Ubisoft has heard the complaints from a lot of people that they missed that old Assassin's Creed style formula. They also are aware, though, that the newest Assassin's Creeds are the best-selling ones. If you just look at what Odyssey and Valhalla did, they're huge. So they're not going to move away from that. But I think they also know that there are people that love those more tight, linear, Assassin's Creed 1, 2s, Unity even, like that style. So I think they're putting this out to kind of appease that fan base a little bit. We'll see it announced this year, but who knows when. But yeah, I think it's going to play a lot more like those old school Assassin's Creed games from what it sounds like, which is smart. Give your fans a nice balance. Give them those huge open world Assassin's Creeds like Valhalla, but also, in a smaller way, give them some of that old school Assassin's Creed. I get it. Exisa, I hope I'm saying that right. Sorry. Surprised that the Witcher announcement tweet had over 320,000 likes. Huge. I think, and I could be wrong, okay? So that's why I didn't put this in my tweet. I think it's the second biggest game confirmation tweet ever on Twitter. The only one I know of off the top of my head that's bigger was Rockstar confirming just a few months ago, right? Was that only a month or two ago? That they're making the next Grand Theft Auto. That freaking thing got 600,000 likes. And that didn't even have like any info. Literally nothing. It was just like, we're making the next Grand Theft Auto. Boom, 600,000 likes. That's the only game I know of that got more likes than The Witcher for its announcement. To put it in perspective, this is the stat that really impressed me from that Witcher tweet. It got more likes than any official Cyberpunk 2077 tweet. And think about how big Cyberpunk's launch was. The biggest one Cyberpunk got, there was one that was close to 300, but it was just there was like 290 something thousand. So for this, which had no real info, seriously, it was pretty close to the Grand Theft Auto tweet in that it like nothing about the game was announced besides we're making one and it's on Unreal Engine and it had a graphic. So it had a little bit more than the Grand Theft Auto announcement, but this still wasn't like some big, here's a trailer and the name of the game. Like it was just like new Witcher games coming. So for that to do more than any Cyberpunk tweet, that shows you the hype for a new Witcher game. Big. We know Witcher 3 sold over 30 million units. One of the biggest selling games of all time, period, right? One of the biggest RPGs ever. Not many games sell over 30 million. That's a pretty elite club. So yeah, Witcher, whatever this is, clearly hype is still immense. Samuel Tolbert, what is up, Samuel? My good buddy here, Samuel. Love you, man. It's great to see you, buddy. Benji, hope you're doing well. What's one completely new feature? Ooh, fun question. You'd like to see in the next Witcher game? Oh, man, completely new feature. One thing I mentioned off the top, I think a character creator would probably be pretty smart. I just think that a lot of people in their Western RPG style games, these big open games, kind of like to create their own character and somewhat role play. Now, we know one of the things that makes The Witcher so beloved is its narrative, right? Like, that's the main reason people loved Witcher 2 and 3. You know, as we know, like, there was a lot of discussion. Witcher 3's gameplay itself wasn't, like, outstanding. It wasn't like, I don't think Witcher 3 plays terribly, but it wasn't like, you know, something like Elden Ring where like really the pull is that combat and, you know, fighting bosses and stuff. Like Witcher's so beloved because people loved that world and they loved that story. So creating your own character could potentially, it can be handled well like we've seen with Mass Effect, but it can potentially hurt narrative when you don't have an established character. So that's one slight risk, but I think a lot of people like to create their own character in these types of games. So I think a character creator is probably smart. So that would be one feature I would mention. Besides that, we already have stuff with like Witcher Senses. We already have sailing. Maybe you could buff up some of the magic stuff a little bit more. The signs all feel somewhat basic. Maybe you could, and I know that like, you know, Witchers aren't sorcerers where they have crazy, ridiculous powers, but maybe you could improve that magic sign system a little bit more, make it feel a little bit more complex and cool. I think that would probably add to the gameplay a bit too. Yeah. I think that would help too. Eric Fairbrother, Benji, what are your Elden Ring sales projections for the end of 22? I think it'll hit 20 million plus by the end of the year. I know a lot of people are starting to go crazy with predictions, like 30 million in a year because launch was so big. And I don't want to tell you it's impossible. We need to see what legs are like. But 12 million in 3 weeks is unbelievable. But I'm going to go a little more conservative, but that's still a giant number. I think it'll do over 20 million by the end of the year. I mean, it did 12 million in 3 weeks, and we've seen excellent legs still. And this game hasn't even had a holiday underneath its belt, right? And it came out in February, and it has all the way till December. So I'm pretty optimistic it'll do 20 million plus. Maybe it'll go even higher, but I'll be surprised at the same time, Eric, if it's under 20 million by the end of the year. It's looking like 20 plus million for sure. Holy cow, I went really long. Okay, two more, and I'm going to go. I'm sorry I can't do more. I'm sorry. I wish I could do more, y'all, but it's a long chat. We're at almost 2 hours now. Let me hit two more questions. I'm going to bounce out, but I will be back next week. We got two more, and I got to go. John Scott, Benji, popping in live. Hope you're doing well. Question: how big is Switch Sports going to be? For me, it's not something I'm really interested in, but could see it being massive. You rock. Thank you so much, John. That's very kind. My expectation for Switch Sports, I think it'll be bigger than Wii Sports U, obviously. So that's a pretty low bar, right? Wasn't that the name of the one that was for Wii Sports? Right? Wasn't there one for the Wii U that didn't do well? How much did Wii Sports Resort sell? Because I could almost even see it being bigger than that. How much did Wii Sports Resort total sales hit? I don't know off the top of my head, y'all. I think it's over 30 million, it looks like. Estimates. Looks like the estimate is at over 30 million. Man, that's pretty tough. Yeah. Wii Sports at 33 million. Okay, 33 million. Dude, that's a lot. I don't think it's impossible. I will say, John Scott, I could see this getting close to Wii Sports Resort. Maybe not actually as high, but I could see it doing over 20 million. Look at Ring Fit, dude. Ring Fit's at, what is that at now? What is that at now? Total sales. It's pretty high, dude. It's pretty freaking high. Over 13 million. So Ring Fit's over 13. Yeah, I think it'll do over 20. John Scott, the question for Switch Sports is, can it pass Sports Resort? That's the question mark for you. Can it beat that? Can it go over 30 million? That's tougher, but I think it can get to 20 considering 13 million for Ring Fit. I think it can. All right, one more, and I gotta go. I'm going to get this one from Strat because it's their first time in the chat. So Strat gets the last one and I got to go. Strat 11. Hey, Benji. First time chatting. Seems like Uncharted Collection underperformed heavily. Nowhere on NPD in January and February and only 17th on PSN charts. Only numbered entries sell as Lost Legacy bombed too. Good question, Strat 11. So here's the thing. I don't think Lost Legacy itself was necessarily a bomb. Keep in mind, that was originally sold as DLC. Like, before they announced it was going to be its own standalone thing, it came part of the season pass for Uncharted 4 because I think originally they planned on Lost Legacy being smaller than it was. And they kind of pivoted towards it being a bigger thing. So considering it was originally envisioned as a bit of a DLC and became more of a spin-off with no Nate or anything in it, I think Lost Legacy by itself did actually fairly decent. Now, Collection, I agree, wasn't a big seller. It seems, this is the vibe I get, seems Uncharted Collection mostly sold to people that already played Uncharted. That's the vibe I get. There's a lot of people upgrading that already owned those games. I think that Uncharted Collection, where it will see its big success, is once it hits PC. That'll be really nice for Uncharted Collection because then it's going to be available to a whole new user base that hasn't had Uncharted before, right? So Uncharted Collection, I think, is going to be a big seller on PC, but I agree, it didn't do a lot on PlayStation, it doesn't look like. Here's my other thought. I don't think that in any way indicates an Uncharted 5 or whatever it's called would underperform. I still think there's a ton of love for the franchise. We've seen the movie do very well. It's on its way to doing over triple its budget. So I think there's still a lot of demand for Uncharted. I just think for a lot of people, they already played these games if they have PlayStations. A lot of the PS5 user base right now, I think, is people coming from PS4 because they're so hard to sell. I don't think they're getting a lot of people that have never owned a PlayStation getting PS5s. I think it's a lot of those hardcore PlayStation fans snagging them up. So, yeah, not great on PlayStation, at least for now. Should do great on PC, and a new Uncharted should do a lot better. All right, everyone, I got to call it there. Thank you so much for a great chat today. I absolutely loved this chat. We had a lot of great topics to cover. If you like doing these chats, make sure you hit the like button. Helps the YouTube algorithm, helps people find my channel, all that goodness. Subscribe if you're not already. Follow me on Twitter if you don't. I'm Benji-Sales on Twitter. And I'll be back next week. We do one of these chats every single week. So if it's your first time, we will be back next week. If I missed your question, bring it on over. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day. Stay safe. Play some games. And I'll see y'all next time. Bye, everybody. Bye. 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 Bye.